Welcome to the Book Angle. I'm Anna and this is Sabrina. And today we're going to be talking about a book rubric because we feel like there might be a little bit of inconsistency, bias that makes book reviews kind of hard to judge whether or not they're accurate or not. Is that fair?
This is like an English teacher slash book lover's dream. I have always dreamed of making a non-biased rubric because I hate when I go on Goodreads or any other reviewing site where they're just like, this book was terrible because I don't like science fiction. Oh, well, then why did you read it? And also, like, is it bad? Or it's even like on like packages that you get in the mail and it's like a product review and it's like the box was damaged. Was the product damaged? How's the product? Sorry.
Yeah.
My rant is over for now. This is our way for you to trust us to know when we give you a review. We have carefully considered it, but also considered using our rubric. We'll link it for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you so ready? I'm pumped.
I am ready because we've already used this. It has been tested out, and I feel like it has stood up to our tests.
Yeah. Okay. So when we were talking about what makes a book good, and we were coming up with our beautiful teachery rubric, which again will be linked in the video, we came up with these five things: characterization, plot development and progression, author's voice, believability, and general reading experience, which, well, it's mentioned, but that's our one with like an asterisk. That's when, you know, your personal vibe can come into the
Yeah,
picture.
that's the one category that we're like, yeah, bias gets free reign there.
Yeah, but it won't mean that the whole thing is a one.
Right.
But we'll go through each category and explain why we chose it and also show you our rankings on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, one being terrible. And that way we can go through it. So, Anna, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so characterization, obviously, this is the category where we talk about the characters, and whether or not we felt like they were believable or they were, like, you were able to engage with them and their motivations made sense. Their, like, were they likable? Did you enjoy them, even if they were, like, not likable in a sense of like this is a good person, but did you still feel like they made sense as a character? That's just a general like that's pretty
Yeah, but
easy to
it's
understand.
important because the whole book is about a character.
Right.
So we have to talk about the character whenever we talk about it.
Right.
So,
So this is our a breakdown of a 1 through a 5. I won't go through the 2 through 4. Those are just kind of the middle categories. But obviously a 1 is going to be this is like I cannot relate to this person whatsoever. I don't even know who they are. I have no understanding of their motivations. They're inconsistent. They don't have any depth. Basically, like a throwaway character. Like I just don't care if they live or die. Then a 5 is obviously the opposite of that, where you want to be their best friend. Or if they're, like, say, a really good villain, you maybe don't want to be their best friend, but you still feel like they're genuine and believable and relatable.
you want to watch this person from a distance,
Right.
like if they're a villain. But yeah, totally agree. There's just a one, there's nothing redeeming. There's just not, there's
Yeah.
just not there for us. Um, so the second one that we thought was really important, you can't have a story without a character or without a plot. Plot and character goes together. That's something I always taught my students. So when we're thinking about plot development, we're thinking about the general progression of the story and how well it flows. And that's pretty essential because if we have this character who we think is believable, but they're going through a messed up plot, you can't really understand the story. So that's why we thought that the plot was a pretty integral part and it had to be included in our book rubric. And so a one, my synopsis is this a fever dream? Because you're just confused. You're like, hold up, I don't understand the structure. This doesn't make sense. This is erratic. Like, is there even a story at hand? It's hard to follow. So you can't actually see what the characters are going through because it's so incoherent. But a 5 is like, oh wow, chef's kiss, because it was intricately crafted, it's well developed. You're really just, you can't wait for like this book. You don't want it to end, but you can't wait to finish it because it's just so well balanced and paced out well. So it's satisfying, but you're sad that it's over. And then the 2 through 4 is like all in between from
Right.
that.
So the next thing that we talked about was author's voice, and this is a little bit of an English majory teacher term because what we're talking about here is what does the style of writing sound like? What does the narrator, well, really not even the narrator, the author, like how can I tell that this is like Brandon Sanderson or T. Kingfisher or V.E. Schwab? Like I'm thinking of characters who have very distinct, or characters, authors who have very distinct voice, and that is something that you might notice in their prose style. Are they witty? Do they use a lot of humor? Are they sarcastic? Things like that that stand out would be a
Yeah.
good example of author's voice. But there are a lot of books where you may not notice the author's voice, and that would obviously put you lower on our 1 to 5 scale. So a 1, who even are you? We can't tell anything distinguishing about the author who wrote this. Maybe their tone is inappropriate or unclear. The narrative voice doesn't make sense. Maybe they're being really sarcastic and it just does not fit the style of like the story itself. And obviously then a 5 on the other end of the spectrum. We called this a defining feature of the work. Like you can be like, yes, this is T. Kingfisher. I really think about T. Kingfisher and V.E. Schwab are 2 authors that I love for their author's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I don't necessarily love the story all of the time, that voice is distinct to them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about voice.
Yeah. And if like that's hard to wrap your head around, you can also think about like if you've ever listened to a song and you can just tell that particular artist, like I always think about Pink. I can tell Pink from a mile away. She kind of has that raspy voice and
Mm-hmm.
can belt out things. That is her personality. That is her voice shining through. The music style matches that. So it might be Englishy, but I think it means more to readers than they even
Right.
like think about.
Yeah, it's not something that I think if you have never taken or if you don't remember taking English classes, or I was a creative writing major, this is something that we talked about a lot in our writing class. If you haven't been trained to think about these things, then you're probably not picking up on it as much, but you probably notice it, just don't have a way to reference it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's why we thought it was really important. An author's personality is essential.
Yeah.
Oof. This one's this one is one if you know, stay tuned to our channel. I don't want to say that we're harsh critics, but believability, I can't, it has to be believable. We're reading this story and we need to believe it. Even if it's a fantastical world, the author needs to have a set rules or governing system that just makes sense. It's not like you're reading a book that's allegedly in medieval times and then next thing you know, someone's texting. That's just not believable. So when we're thinking about believability, we're thinking about how do characters behave? Is the plot even something that we could grasp, even if it's fantasy? It like just how are all the conflicts? Were they resolved in a way that makes sense? And in my opinion, this could wreck a book because
Mm-hmm.
if I don't believe you, I'm not interested. So the one our synopsis says you sit on a throne of lies, like we just what is this? And that is basically just again it's not really believable. Certain plot points are just nonsensical. The characters actions are just baffling. Maybe they just have nothing to do with what we were expecting, and there's just a lot of gaping holes that were just not answered. Whereas a 5, no further questions, case dismissed, like you're good to go because the author and the narrator has created such just like a clear and established world. It's immersive. Everything, the rules just make sense. The characters' actions make sense. It matches with their previous actions. I just feel like this just is like, again, this just makes a book great. If I believe you, I typically like your story.
Yeah, and I feel like believability, like you said, makes or breaks because I can almost like if I can believe you, then I can look past to, like a character that I don't like as much or a plot
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But if, as long as I believe it, then it's okay.
Yeah.
But if I can't buy into the story as a whole, if I can't buy into the world existing, then it's just ruined for me.
Yeah. So this might be the one where we're both harsh, but I feel like it does make sense.
Yeah.
It's like I feel betrayed when the believability is ruined. It's just sad. Um, okay.
Okay, so reading experience is our one and final category where you get to be biased. Where this is purely, did I enjoy the experience? Did I enjoy reading this book? Were the vibes good? How did this make me feel? Regardless of like whether or not it was like I feel like there are books that I'm like, man, I feel like the plot could have been a little bit more believable. It could have been a little bit more structured. The characters' motivations could have been a little bit more clear, but I had so much fun that I don't care. Like
Yeah.
there are times where the experience, the funness of the story really make it and kind of
Yeah.
negate all of the other issues that potentially were there. So this is our category that allows you to say, it was greatly written, but I hated it and it scarred me forever, which is a one. I regret reading it, deeply unsatisfying. And versus a five, where this is like my favorite book ever. I'm gonna recommend it to everyone. I'm keeping it in my collection. Um, where this is just, it's purely based off of vibes and just, is
Yeah.
it a good time or not?
And I feel like that's important because reading in some ways is subjective. If you love fantasy books, then of course you might gravitate towards that, and we don't want to take it away from you. In fact, the teacher side of me is coming out. In fact, a rubric is freeing because that was so bad. It's freeing, but if you decide that you hate this book, you can give it a one in this section, but not completely give it a one on Goodreads, because you can look at other things and be like, well, you know what? They did do this well. And I feel like that's important because there are some books that are recommended to me and I do think they're well written and I like the characters, but it's just not the book for me. And we can't remove that fun from reading with this rubric, you know?
Yeah. Reading or books are a form of art. And like you said, it is at the end of the day subjective because it's based off of, a lot of it's based off of opinion. And the first four categories are trying to like kind of get us all on the same level of what is good for a one and what's good for a five as far as opinions. And this is where we're purely like, it's just what you feel. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. But, moving forward, these will be the 5 categories that we will use for all of our book reviews. If you want to use a rubric, feel free. We will, as I said before, how many times have I said it? But we will link it. And
yeah.
do you agree?
Yeah. Do you
What do
agree
you
with
think?
us? Do you think we should have used a different category? Is there something that you would have removed from this? Yeah, I'm curious to see what people think because I feel like reading rubrics are something that you have in school, but I have never seen someone talk about a rubric just from like a purely like, I'm doing this for fun and I'm still going to use a rubric. Like I don't think I've ever seen someone do that before. Not to be like, oh, we're the only ones. I'm sure we're not, but it's I think I'm interested to see how people react to this approach because as we've done it, we've now, like I said, we've used this for 3 books so far,
Mhm.
and I feel like it's been really helpful. I didn't
Yeah.
expect it to be that helpful, but it has, and it's really helps guide our discussion, and I appreciate
Because
that.
rubrics are free. Rubrics are amazing. All the people out there are like, clean.
Yeah.
But it is really helpful. Yeah, let us know if you agree or if there was something where we said it and you're like, oh, yeah, I can see that. And Anna, your final part.
Oh, like and subscribe. And next week we will be using this very rubric on our first book review, which is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming next week. Yay.
Bye,
Okay,
y'all.
bye.
Thanks.